Hello and welcome to In Depth. I'm Tina Jha. In the wake of the terror attack in Pulwama, relations between India and Pakistan are at their lowest ebb. But even before the attack, the two neighbors were engaged in an equally tense face-off at the International Court of Justice headquarters at The Hague, with legal teams from both sides presenting their arguments in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case. The case relates to retired Indian naval officer Kulbhushan Jadhav, who was kidnapped by Pakistani security forces in 2016. A Pakistani military court sentenced him to death in April 2017. On being challenged by India, the ICJ stayed Jadhav's execution pending trial. The ICJ is presently conducting a 4-day public hearing since 18th February. And both India and Pakistan have presented their first round of arguments. Today in Depth, we look at the claims and counterclaims made by both countries, the case of Kulbhushan Jadhav, the role of the ICJ in arbitrating legal cases between nations, and what effect does its verdicts have. The International Court of Justice, or the ICJ, is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It settles legal disputes between member countries and gives advisory opinions to authorized UN organs and specialized agencies. The ICJ comprises a panel of 15 judges elected by the General Assembly and the Security Council. These judges are elected for 9-year terms. The court sits in the Peace Palace in The Hague in the Netherlands.
The International Court of Justice was established in 1945 by a UN charter, and it began work in 1946 as the successor to the Permanent Court of International Justice. The Statute of the International Court of Justice, similar to that of its predecessor, is the main constitutional document constituting and regulating the court. The court engages in a wide range of judicial activity. Chapter 14 of the UN Charter authorizes the UN Security Council to enforce court rulings. However, such enforcement is subject to the veto power of the 5 permanent members of the Council.
United Nations, initially when it was started, it had only 50 countries. Now it has 193 countries. Now, according to UN Charter, whichever country becomes member of the United Nations also becomes member of the International Court of Justice. That means it comes within the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. So at the moment there are 193 countries, which includes both India and Pakistan.
The ICJ is composed of 15 judges who are elected to 9-year terms by the United Nations General Assembly and the UN Security Council. This is from a list of people nominated by the national groups in the Permanent Court of Arbitration. The election process for the judges is set out in Articles 4 to 19 of the ICJ statute. Elections are staggered, with 5 judges elected every 3 years to ensure continuity within the court. Should a judge die in office, the practice has generally been to elect a judge in a special election to complete the term. No 2 judges may be nationals of the same country. According to Article 9, the membership of the court is supposed to represent the main forms of civilization and of the principal legal systems of the world. Essentially, that has meant common law, civil law, and socialist law. The judges in the ICJ are chosen to represent all geographic regions of the world. This is not based on a formal rule, it's just an informal understanding between the nations. There are 5 seats for Western countries, 3 for African states, 2 for Eastern European states, 3 for Asian states, and 2 for Latin American and Caribbean states. For most of ICJ's history, France, Russia, China, the UK, and the US have always had a judge serving, thereby occupying 3 of the Western seats, 1 of the Asian seats, and 1 of the Eastern European seats, with only a few exceptions.
Now this ICJ, I'll call it ICJ, has 15 judges. And at the moment, there are all 15 judges are there, and Justice Bhandari from India sits on the bench. There is also one temporary ad hoc judge from Pakistan who is also sitting there. And the 13 other from America, from Russia, from different countries, Brazil, some African countries are also represented.
Of these exceptions is one when China did not have a judge from 1967 to 1985 and British Judge Sir Christopher Greenwood being withdrawn as a candidate for election for a second 9-year term on the bench in 2017, leaving no judges from the United Kingdom on the court. Indian Judge Dalveer Bhandari instead took this seat. Article 6 of the statute provides that all judges should be elected regardless of their nationality. They should be of high moral character, either qualified for the highest judicial office in their home state or known as lawyers with sufficient competence in international law. Judicial independence is dealt with specifically in Articles 16 to 18. Judges of the ICJ are not able to hold any other post or act as counsel. A judge can be dismissed only by a unanimous vote of the other members of the court. Judges at the ICJ may deliver joint judgments or give their own separate opinions. Decisions and advisory opinions are by majority, and in the event of an equal division, the President's vote becomes decisive. Judges may also deliver separate dissenting opinions. Article 31 sets out a procedure whereby ad hoc judges sit on contentious cases before the court. The system allows any party to a contentious case to select one additional person to sit as a judge on that case only. It is thus possible that as many as 17 judges may sit on one case. The provision for ad hoc judges has been made to encourage states to submit cases. If a state knows that it will have a judicial officer who can participate in deliberation and offer other judges local knowledge and an understanding of the state's perspective, it may be more willing to submit to the jurisdiction of the court. Although this system does not sit well with the judicial nature of the body, it is usually of little practical consequence. Ad hoc judges usually vote in favor of the state that appointed them and thus cancel each other out. With inputs from Pranjal Mishra, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The International Court of Justice is a world court. Member states of the UN are automatic parties to the statute, subject to certain conditions. States who are not party to the UN Charter may also become parties to the statute. Here's a detailed report on the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice.
The International Court of Justice acts as a world court and is the principal legal organ of the United Nations. The court's jurisdiction is twofold. It decides in accordance with the international law disputes of a legal nature that are submitted to it by states. It also gives advisory opinions on legal questions at the request of the organs of the United Nations, specialized agencies, or one related organization authorized to make such a request. The court's part is to settle, as per the international law, legal matters submitted to it by states and to give admonitory opinions on legal inquiries referred to it by authorized United Nations organs.
The role is basically two types. One type is advisory. You send somebody, United Nations has many organizations, all these 193 member states are there, so they can send to the International Court of Justice a reference. Please, this is the dispute with such and such entity, please advise us. So that is advisory. Now advisory, besides advisory, there is also, actually there is a legal dispute. The countries are there and they have a legal dispute. They take this matter, it is like a court. Like India has some dispute with Pakistan, then India will file a case, India versus Pakistan.
In the exercise of its jurisdiction in contentious cases, the International Court of Justice settles disputes of a legal nature that are submitted to it by states in accordance with international law. An international legal dispute can be defined as a disagreement on a question of law or fact, as conflict or a clash of legal views or interests. Only states may apply to or appear before the ICJ. International organizations, other authorities, and private individuals are not entitled to institute proceedings before the ICJ court. Article 35 of the statute defines the conditions under which states may access the court. It states that the court is open to the state parties to the statute and that it is intended to regulate access to the court by states which are not parties to the statute. The conditions under which such states may access the court are determined by the Security Council, with the provision that under no circumstances shall such conditions place the parties in a position of inequality before the court. The court can only deal with a dispute when the states concerned have recognized its jurisdiction. No state can therefore be a party to proceedings before the court unless it has in some manner or other contested thereto.
It is binding on all the 193 member countries. Why? The reason is, once you file a case, like India has filed a case against Pakistan, and Pakistan presents itself and seeks time to file reply, that means India and Pakistan both have surrendered to the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, and also it means that whatever judgment the International Court of Justice will give will be binding on both the parties.
Since states alone are entitled to appear before the court, public, governmental, international organizations cannot be parties to a case before it. However, a special procedure, the advisory procedure, is available to such organizations and to them alone. This procedure is available to 5 United Nations organs, 15 specialized agencies, and 1 related organization. Though based on contentious proceedings, advisory proceedings have distinctive features resulting from special nature and purpose of the advisory function. Advisory proceedings begin with the filing of a written request for an advisory opinion addressed to the Registrar by the United Nations Secretary General or the Director or the Secretary General of the entity requesting the opinion. In urgent cases, the court may take all appropriate measures to speed up the proceedings. To assemble all the necessary information about the question submitted to it, the court is empowered to hold written and oral proceedings. Despite having no binding force, the court's advisory opinions nevertheless carry great legal weight and moral authority. They are often an instrument of preventive diplomacy and help to keep the peace.
Rulings are mostly advisory, but there are conventions like the Vienna Convention, the Geneva Convention, and the member countries are signatories to a lot of conventions. So it's about following international protocol or not. You do it at your own risk.
In their own way, advisory opinions also contribute to the clarification and development of international law and thereby to the strengthening of the peaceful relations between states. With inputs from Pranjal Prakhar, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The International Court of Justice is currently holding a 4-day public hearing on the Kulbhushan Jadhav case. India has urged the ICJ to annul Kulbhushan Jadhav's death sentence by a Pakistani military court. Pakistan, however, continues to claim that Kulbhushan Jadhav was an instrument of India's official policy of terror. The International Court of Justice began a 4-day public hearing in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case on 18th February. In the first round of arguments, India accused Pakistan of using Kulbhushan Jadhav as a propaganda tool. Indian counsel at the ICJ, Harish Salve, built the case on 2 broad issues. He said Pakistan breached the Vienna Convention on Consular Access and the process of resolution. He told the 15-judge court that Pakistan's story about Kulbhushan Jadhav is solely based on rhetoric, highlighting that Pakistan filed the FIR almost a month after the arrest of Jadhav. Salve attacked Jadhav's trial by a secret military court in Pakistan, which he said was opaque to the outside world. Further, Pakistan provided no credible evidence to show Jadhav's involvement in any act of terrorism. Salve pointed out that as per international standards, military courts must be independent, impartial and competent and respect minimum guarantee of fairness. But Pakistani military courts are not independent and proceedings before them fall far short of national and international fair trial standards.
Pakistan runs unmeritorious defenses under the shepu of abuse of process, abuse of rights, of extirpe causa. It misstates the law, it misreads commentaries, it relies on material that is not recognized as having any precedential value. And finally, having failed in its propaganda against India, as a feeble attempt to counter global criticism of its role in cross-border terrorism, Pakistan seeks to raise issues such as India's refusal to allow it to indulge in a freewheeling inquiry into high functionaries without even disclosing the fundamental elements of the alleged offenses that are to be investigated and of passports that it allegedly has seized. It is India's case that none of these issues call for resolution and decision by this court.
Salve said according to Article 36 of the Vienna Convention, a country must be informed about the detention of its citizens. But Pakistan did not inform India about Kulbhushan Jadhav's arrest. Without consular access, India has no information on what happened to Jadhav in Pakistan. Since his arrest, India has sent 13 reminders to Pakistan for consular access to Jadhav, but Islamabad is yet to accede.
Article 36 requires consular access to be given without delay upon arrest. Such access has to be given before the case is brought to trial. At the stage of arrest, there would merely be allegations of wrongdoing which are under investigation. If at this stage, on allegations leveled by the host state, it is relieved of the obligations under Article 36, and if consular access is jettisoned, it would render Article 36 a dead letter. The more serious allegations, the greater the need for ensuring that an accused has full and meaningful right to defend himself against charges brought against him. To exclude the operation of Article 36 in matters of serious charges of terrorism that would fly in the face of criminal jurisprudence. There can be no doubt that Article 36 was engaged in the present case. An Indian was detained, purportedly arrested, a confession extracted, then he was tried and convicted by a military court, awarded death sentence. And all along, requests for consular access were rejected. This, quite plainly, is an egregious breach of Article 36.
Pakistan, in its arguments, called India's claims to release Jadhav outlandish. Pakistan's counsel alleged India did not answer key questions about Kulbhushan Jadhav.
Pakistan's sovereignty cannot be compromised under any legal dispensation. All courts are working under due legal process, having proper jurisdiction as provided by law. In contrast, without due process, the action of our neighbor, India, chooses to destabilize and create hegemony over its neighbors by force, causing terrorism, training terrorists for acting in neighbor countries, sending their trained spies to fund, create chaos in those countries.
Pakistan claims its security forces arrested Jadhav from the restive Balochistan province on 3rd March 2016 after he reportedly entered from Iran. But India maintains Jadhav was kidnapped from Iran, where he had business interests after retiring from the Navy.
First they will have to decide how did this man enter Pakistan? It's a very big question, because his passport does not show any entry which says that he entered Pakistan. He was just kidnapped from Iran and brought to Balochistan. He did not come really from any legal entry. He was kidnapped and brought. So it is a complicated case.
Kulbhushan Jadhav was sentenced to death by a Pakistani military court for espionage and terrorism in April 2017. In May, India moved the ICJ against a farcical trial by the Military Court of Pakistan. On 18th May 2017, a 10-member bench of the ICJ, set up after the Second World War to resolve international disputes, restrained Pakistan from executing Kulbhushan Jadhav till adjudication of the case. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Various disputes between countries have ended up before the International Court of Justice. The first case between United Kingdom versus Albania entered the general list of the court and was submitted on 22nd May 1947. Till 1st January 2019, 176 cases have entered the general list. India has been involved in cases at the ICJ on 6 occasions, including the present one about Kulbhushan Jadhav. On 4 of these 6 occasions, Pakistan was the opposing party.
The International Court of Justice at The Hague has a twofold role. First, to settle, in accordance with international law, legal disputes submitted to it by states in contentious cases, and second, to give advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by United Nations organs and specialized agencies. In contentious proceedings involved one state against another, names of the parties are separated by abbreviation. When a dispute is submitted on the basis of a special agreement between two states, names of the parties are separated by an oblique mark. Between 22nd May 1947 and 1st January 2019, 176 cases were entered in the general list. Some interesting cases that went for hearing were the Iran hostage crisis that involved a diplomatic standoff between Iran and the United States of America. 52 American diplomats and citizens were held hostage for 444 days from November 4, 1979 to January 20, 1981, after Iranian college students belonging to the Muslim student followers of the Imam's line, who supported the Iranian Revolution, took over the US Embassy in Tehran. It became the longest hostage crisis in recorded history. At America's request, the court said there was nothing more fundamental than the inviolability of diplomatic envoys and embassies. It indicated provisional measures for ensuring immediate restoration of the embassy premises to America and release of the hostages. In the Republic of Nicaragua versus the United States of America in 1986, the ICJ ruled in favor of Nicaragua and awarded reparations. The ICJ said US violated international law by supporting the Contras in their rebellion against the Nicaraguan government. The United States avoided the proceedings after claiming the court had no jurisdiction to hear the case. On 9th January 2003, Mexico accused America of violating Article 5 and 36 of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations with respect to 54 Mexican nationals sentenced to death in certain states of the United States. In its judgment on 31st March 2004, the court found the US had breached its obligations. India was involved in 6 cases at the ICJ, including the Kulbhushan Jadhavs. 4 of these had Pakistan as the opposite party. In 1955, Portugal claimed it had a right of passage through the territory of India to ensure communications between its territory of Daman and its enclaved territories of Dadra and Nagar Haveli. India contended that the events that took place in Dadra on 21st and 22nd July 1954 overthrew Portuguese authorities in these enclaves, creating tensions in the surrounding Indian territory. The ICJ ruled that India had not acted contrary to its obligations. In 1971, India said the Council of the International Civil Aviation Organization had no jurisdiction on a complaint filed by Pakistan. Deciding on the case in 1972, the ICJ rejected Pakistan's objection that the ICJ had no jurisdiction to entertain India's appeal. It also held that ICAO is competent to entertain the complaint made to it by Pakistan. In 1973, Pakistan sought proceedings against India on the charges of genocide against 195 Pakistani nationals, prisoners of war or civilian internees in the Indian custody. The case ended after both India and Pakistan governments held discussions and came to an agreement on the issue. In 1999, Pakistan entered into a dispute on the destruction of a Pakistani aircraft by India in 1999. Pakistan said ICJ had jurisdiction in the issue, but the ICJ concluded it had no jurisdiction to entertain the application filed by Pakistan. In 2014, the Republic of the Marshall Islands instituted proceedings against all nuclear weapon states, contending breach of customary law obligations on nuclear disarmament. India said the ICJ had no jurisdiction in this case. In the 2016 decision, the court accepted that it cannot proceed to the merits of the case because of lack of jurisdiction. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So that's it from us in today's edition of In Depth. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a focus on some other subject. You can also watch our episodes online on YouTube and Twitter and get back to us with your feedback and suggestions. Thank you very much for your time.